Morning, you're very welcome along to OTB AM. We're with you until 10 this morning. We've loads of sport to get into. Owen, how are you getting on?
Good, Adrian. What's the crack?
All good. It's grim, really, this morning, and the bad news continues from Ukraine. We'll wanted to talk a little bit about it off the top because it's so closely associated with sport, and the Ukraine president has been out in front of the media this morning to say that 137 people, civilians and military, have been killed in the first day of the Russian attack, and indications now, and certainly those informed sources from there, saying that Russia's aim here is to try and overthrow the Ukraine government. So that'll give you a bit of an indication as to where this thing is headed. Ukraine saying multiple more bombings again overnight. Everybody's social media feed is full of very grim video and reports coming from the country. It's hard to watch on. And you couldn't imagine what it would be like to actually be in the middle of it. And that desperate sound, we've heard it all on our news reports as well, that desperate sound of the air raids ringing out across the cities and around the countryside around Ukraine as well. We really have them in our thoughts this morning. It must be very tough, and the world watches on, and we're seemingly helpless, I guess, to do anything. It's the first major ground war in Europe in decades. Helpless and still. And for anyone who says that sport and politics is no place in the same room, and I absolutely no doubt that we're going to get umpteen comments on the back of this saying that stick to the sport, lads. But I think we just have to raise the topic this morning. Don't look away now, because sport has played a big part in getting us to the position that we're at the minute. You can't disconnect sport and facilitating the actions of a regime who have been on the record say that they thought that Lenin made a big mistake in giving away, as they put it, disconnecting that old Russian network of independent, now sovereign countries in the region. And you can't disconnect the role that sport has played in making this the event of this week come to a head. And sport very much feels like the Trojan horse, I think, in a lot of ways, of despots like Putin. There isn't any amount of, well, we'll just go out and play there because it'll help grow the game of golf in a country of 40 million people and 14 golf courses in Saudi Arabia. We'll help grow the game of golf feels a little bit trite in that context, and it's a very similar dynamic that's happening in other countries, and Russia is certainly a case of that. 35 million people, and you can't wash that away. It just that sort of rhetoric any longer we can't stand for as a sporting public. I think we have to draw a line in the sand. I think when you look at the likes of Newcastle, you look at the likes of Chelsea now, Manchester United have an association with Aeroflot, Schalke, if you do a bit of research, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, we're one of the first clubs, if not the first, to be sponsored by Gazprom, for example. The TV companies who are obliged to show Gazprom sponsorships during their Champions League matches. We can't look away now. We have to question ourselves. We have to face up to it. Do we continue to turn a blind eye to sports washing, or do we demand a bit better? And it isn't someone else's problem. That's the reality for us now. Our own football association are part of an organisation as part of the wider football family that we're constantly told about. We've facilitated cosy relationships between Russia and the football family around Europe. And I know that the FAI CEO Jonathan Hill posted a tweet yesterday: never mind matches to be played or not, all our thoughts at the moment are with our football friends in the Ukraine, Russia and across Europe and the wider UEFA family. Be safe, please, he said. I've absolutely no doubt that it was well intentioned, but a little bit tone deaf, since deleted. And I do think that we can't turn our eyes away from what's going on at the minute. We can't turn our eyes away from our responsibility to those people who are under attack. And UEFA saying yesterday, Owen, I don't know if you saw it, I'm sure you were following events, they will closely monitor Gazprom's sponsorship of the Champions League, and it just feels like we're closely monitoring a horse that has long since bolted.
Nobody needs to be told that it's an unbelievably grim situation, but it is borderline hilarious, the response from some of the sports bodies in terms of how predictable it was. It's like we're safe in the numbers that we have today, lads, because everybody's coming out condemning this sort of stuff. We are not going to be impacted one little bit if you come out today. And in fact, sitting on the hands for as long as possible is going to be an interesting tactic over the next little while, because there's no doubt that football in particular is going to try and sit in its hands for a little while, so that sweet Gazprom cash may come flowing in eventually one day. So that's the ideal situation for football, make no bones about it. I mean, they will say that, you know, the lives of the Ukrainians is what's paramount to them. It's not. It's the cash that comes in from Gazprom as a huge sponsor over the next little while. And that's just football. For me, the most hilarious response yesterday was the IOC coming out. Obviously, the great lads in terms of the Olympic movement, they came out. Thomas Bach was part of a statement, and they came out to strongly condemn the breach of the Olympic truce yesterday. So, I mean, I can't believe a country has invaded another one, given the Olympic truce exists. What the hell the Olympic truce is, we might come back to that in just a second. But they said, following recent events, the IOC is deeply concerned about the safety of the Olympic community in Ukraine. It has established a task force to closely monitor the situation and to coordinate humanitarian assistance to members of the Olympic community in Ukraine where possible. So they're obviously shocked and appalled by what's going on at the moment. This news breaking this week that Russia may not be a sound bunch of lads. Let's forget the fact that 2008, an Olympic Games year, was the year Russia invaded Georgia. Let's forget 2014, a Winter Games year, also in Russia, where Russia annexed Crimea. This is all new news for the IOC. The Olympic truce was only broken yesterday. Of course, that forced them to come out and act. As I mentioned, Thomas Bach is part of the statement. He, and I quote from their statement, he reiterates his call for peace, which he expressed in his speeches at the opening ceremony and closing ceremony of the Olympic Games, held in China just a couple of weeks ago. At the opening ceremony, he called on the political authorities, observe your commitment to this Olympic truce, give peace a chance. At the closing ceremony in China, he asked the political leaders to be inspired by the example of solidarity and peace set by the Olympic athletes. And if you're not aware, that Olympic Games took place in China, which was very funny indeed that he'd be coming out saying this sort of stuff now, because 3 days before the closing ceremony, and we did cover this on Monday's show, we had the Beijing spokesperson Yan Jirong dismissing claims of human rights abuses. First off, she called them lies, and then she also said, what I want to say is that there is only one China in the world. Taiwan is an indivisible part of China, and this is well recognised international principle and well recognised in the international community. And just a quick reminder of what one China is. The one China principle is the position held by China that there is only one sovereign state under the name China, and Taiwan is a part of China, as opposed to the idea that there are two states. I mean, that's the first time I've heard something like that one state believes that another state is part of it by some God-given right. So I'm sure time will judge the Olympics very, very well in terms of their dealing with China over the last little while, and that no other Olympic truces are going to be broken. Yeah. There is a definition online, by the way, if anybody's interested, on Olympics.com of what the Olympics truce is, and it goes all the way back to ancient Greece. So,
go on, what is it? Can you give us the cliff notes of it?
There's 2 paragraphs. So, the tradition of the Olympic truce was established in ancient Greece in the 9th century BC through the signing of a treaty between 3 kings, Ephitos of Elis, Cleosthenes of Pisa, and Lycurgus of Sparta, to allow safe participation in the ancient Olympic Games for all athletes and spectators from these Greek city-states, which were otherwise almost constantly engaged in conflict with each other. Taking into account the new political reality in which sport and the Olympic Games exist, the IOC decided to revive the concept of the Olympic truce for the Olympic Games, with a view to protecting as far as possible the interests of the athletes and sport in general, and to harness the power of sport to promote peace, dialogue and reconciliation more broadly. That really hits home this morning. You read those out to Ukrainians, they would feel a hell of a lot better about themselves this morning if they knew that exists, because that will come and save you guys.
It's bunkum and like entirely out of touch, which is really the theme, I think, of everything this morning. And like, there are those associations that we've mentioned, like the various clubs, Manchester United and Airflat, much more directly, Newcastle United, much more directly, Chelsea Football Club over the last 20 odd years. And like, I just think that it's a moment for us all, to fans of those clubs, to don't turn away now. Like, now's not the time to say the thing that we've said for the last 15 or 20 years. Oh, look at, we just gotta grin and bear this. This is the new reality, and we can't look away now. And like, I point to the fact as well that overnight, I've read this morning, Saudi Arabia, obviously with their Newcastle United links and multiple other investments in world sport and particularly in golf, who last night, along with the United Arab Emirates, have dropped bombs on Yemen. And like, so this is something that is a very real thing, and that it's not something that we can really any longer turn our back on it. And the Olympic aspect of it is interesting to me in the sense that I maybe feel that at some point or another we all felt guided by this Olympic, not necessarily the Olympic truce, because I'm not going to lie to you, it's the first time I've ever heard those words combined, but the Olympic spirit or an Olympic connection as some sort of an ethereal governance, right? That like it was a touchstone for sport to know that everything was right with the world.
When
They fed off each other. But this is me projecting, I think, the world that a lot of the people who govern sport operate in. You know, it's the world in which they can sit down with companies like Gazprom
yes, exactly.
and sign along the dotted line and then leave and go, well, we're doing right by world sport here. We're better off inside the tent pissing out than the other way around. And it's going to allow us to speak to the people of Saudi Arabia in a way that we will help bring freedom to them. And I think that actually what's clear to me now is that individual sports can't any longer be allowed to govern themselves, because when the men in trench coats turn up at the door with big bags of cash, they just can't help themselves. They just can't say no. And there probably needs to be some sort of an overarching governing body that is totally detached from any one of the organisations, and certainly detached from any profit-making aspect to it, who need to be the watchdog. There needs to be something. UEFA need to be able to answer to somebody. FIFA need to be able to answer to somebody. World Golf needs to be able to answer to somebody. This is the new world order that we live in. That wasn't. I say it wasn't. There's probably a caveat there somewhere, but it certainly wasn't as necessary 20, 30, 50 years ago. But in 2022, is it not blindingly obvious that individual sports bodies and associations or unions can't be trusted to govern themselves?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, it has been like what's going to happen next is going to be very interesting. I don't think what you say, unfortunately, is ever going to manifest itself in reality. I think you're who instigates that, who is the first person to say we would like to relinquish all of our power. But it's true what you say. Like there is definitely this sense of we are holier than thou in terms of like the Olympic movement or even to a certain degree football, and sport as a power for good is a very interesting concept, and they feel that they get a free pass in some things as a result of that. So like I mean there are just, the thing is, it's so easy to come up with examples of times when all this was just turned a blind eye to, and so many of them are in recent years, and you can throw the obvious examples out regarding Russia, the World Cup in 2018, Sochi in 2014, this year's World Cup, this year's Winter Games. It does feel that more and more these events are changed with just an element of a grim blanket, really, and that's what we're dealing with. Whether or not sport will do anything to act, I'm not convinced. Yesterday was a very easy bandwagon to hop on, wasn't it?
Yeah, and ultimately you're probably right, but we just couldn't start the show this morning we didn't want to look away this morning, is the point. And we also wanted to show you this. It was Associated Press global sports reporter Rob Harris has been doing brilliant work in his conversations with particularly the FIFA president Gianni Infantino over the last couple of weeks. Here he was yesterday. It was a FIFA press conference. Rob Harris asking Infantino if he's going to retain the Order of Friendship medal, which was given to him by Vladimir Putin in the last few years, and if he had any regrets about praising Putin so strongly in recent years.
Will you be retaining your Order of Friendship medal that you received from Vladimir Putin after the 2018 World Cup? And in light of all the developments that have happened now, do you have any regrets about the 2018 World Cup, your glowing endorsements of Vladimir Putin and his conduct? Because they had already annexed Crimea at that point in 2014. And there have been concerns raised, particularly in the British government, that sport does help to legitimise the actions of a country like Russia when it acts aggressively towards a neighbour. So will you be reflecting on perhaps the role of sport and how it can help to embolden a leader like Vladimir Putin in taking action, as it has done aggressively in Ukraine?